Hello, welcome to Yoga with Rach. And Rach, thank you very much for joining me. It is another Tuesday. It's our third video of practicing on a Tuesday together. Week one, I was going into some wrist and forearm work. We were strengthening the forearm muscles without any props. Last week, we were working with the resistance bands and a belt. And this week, we are working with weights, in particular dumbbells. You can do certain practices with the kettlebells. If you don't have dumbbells, but you have a fairly decent water bottle that you can grip, the whole idea with this is about getting that grip working. You can fill your water bottle up, obviously with water. If it's one you don't use and you want to make it a bit heavier, you can always work with sand or gravel or stones. So you're making that heavier, but you want to make sure you can hold on to it. So this is the idea. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago when I was introducing why I put these videos together. Excuse me. Is that when we're practicing yoga and we're in weight bearing poses, which are really good for building up strength in the arms, building up the bone strength, because obviously as it says, you're weight bearing. But when you're doing that, what are you doing with your hands? So when you're in tabletop, when you're in plank, when you're in downward facing dog, you're spreading the fingertips nice and wide. So you're nice and active here, but then you're not going into this movement here a lot, which really activates and works in with the forearm muscles. So when we hold on to weights, so dumbbells, when we're holding onto kettlebells, so we're getting this pulling up movement. When you're holding onto your water bottle, think about every time you pick up your water bottle, not only are you hydrating yourself, but you're going into this gripping action. And this is what we're made for. We are climbers. You think about we stem from, or we're very similar to monkeys, where we would be gripping and climbing. So even climbing is a really good practice. So if you're really into your yoga practice, do make sure you find that balance. So I do like to work with weights, and that is one big thing I'm missing at the moment where we're in isolation about not going to the gym. So I'm really happy that I have my weights at home so I can still go into this practice. And then climbing is really good as well. So you're getting that action of gripping and pulling up. So you're working with building strength in your arms. And a big thing we think about with yoga is about flexibility, but you want to have that balance of the two. You want to have your strength and flexibility. When you work on one, the other will decrease. So it's finding that balance. I know exactly the same works for me. I'm quite flexible in my shoulders. Wheel pose, most of us know this as crab, feels really easy for me. Yet when I really got into my inversion practice, I was building up the strength in my arms and my shoulders. When I went back into, pun intended, my wheel pose practice, that back bend practice, I noticed I had more of a restriction because I've been building on my strength, which meant my flexibility started to lessen. So it's finding that 50-50 balance. And you'll notice the same, quite a few people have done the practices where they've invited bodybuilders in, so they're really built up in their muscles, especially in their neck and the shoulders. They might not get this range of movement, and then they find the flexibility side of a practice quite challenging. But do the same if you've got someone who really practices yoga or gymnastics where you're really focusing on the flexibility, and try to get them to do a strengthening practice. This can be challenging. And the reason I'm bringing these practices in is that I'm not a PT, I'm not a physio, but I do love working with the body. I love anatomy, and these are practices that I've brought in alongside my yoga practice to help to look after the wrists, the forearms, biceps, the triceps and the shoulders. There's lots of other practices you can do. I'm just going to go through a few practices like we did last week. We can go up to 10. Last week I didn't count them, but I will be counting these today. So we're going to go through a few different variations, and you can pause it at the end, and I will change sides with you. So we'll be doing the right side and the left side, or the left side and the right side. Pause it and go through, see how many sets you can do. So I always work with 10. So I'll do 10 repetitions, and that'll be the first set. And then I'll change sides, 10 repetitions. I'm doing this movement because that's the movement we're going to be doing in a moment. And then I'll be going back to the first one. And you might find that then they're a little bit harder. So maybe you can still go with 10. So you do 10 on that side, go to the other side. Maybe your third set, maybe you get up to 10, maybe you get up to 8 or 9. So you're starting to build that muscle fatigue. So this is when we have a pause in between. So you might find that today, if you're only running through them, you still pause, have that little 30-second or a minute pause before you go into the next round of practices with these movements. So for the first one, we're going to be using a dumbbell, or if you are using your water bottle, so you're holding onto the water bottle, So you only need one for this one. So we're going to be stretching our left leg out, right knee is bent, and you're going to just gently push your right elbow onto your right thigh. So you're not onto the knee, you're just at the top of the knee. You're holding your arm up, and I love this movement because you're slowly lowering the arm down so that you're making that line nice and parallel, and lifting back up for 1, lowering, lifting back up for 2. Keeping going. See how slow I'm moving. 3. Focusing on the breath. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. And 10. Changing sides, so bending the left knee, stretching the right leg out, placing the dumbbell in the left hand, put the elbow so you're not on the top of the knee or on the thigh, moving nice and slowly, lowering down and lifting back up for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll probably still go too fast for this. 9, 10. I can really feel my biceps and my triceps working with that one. So you might pause this, go back over onto the right side and do another set of 10 on each side. So we're going to be moving into a different set of movements. So with these ones, you can do a lot of these sitting as well as standing. So if you have got a sort of weight bench, then these can be really, really good. With this one, you can either work with the dumbbells. You might need to have two, water bottles, or if you've got like a bag for life, those carrier bags that you use, so whether it's the ones that you use that you've bought from the shops or those nice canvas bags, fill them up so you're creating weight. And then what we're going to be doing, so I'm going to show you this one kneeling. So we're holding the arms up and you're shrugging the shoulders. Shrugging the shoulders. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you can do this one standing up, so if you're holding like the bags for life, so you can fill them up with how much weight you're happy to carry, and then it's creating that essence. So you can shrug the shoulders, so you're getting the movement, but by adding in holding onto the dumbbells, you're then getting that grip, or your bags. If you're holding onto the bags, just try to make sure the bags are even, or at least then change size every time you do a different set. So you'll be doing at least 2 or 4 of those. If you're changing size, just make sure that you're not over lifting on one side. From here, we can also then get into the obliques, because we want to make sure that we're working with the breath, and if we've got some nice shape to the sideways, that's always very welcome. And then you're working with building up extra strength into those muscles so we can take in more breath. Here's the thing, when you lift weights, you are actually able to take in more breath as well, so it's better for taking in more oxygen. So I'm going to show this one kneeling, because again, unfortunately, where I'm practicing this at home, I don't have as much space if I was at the studio, so you're going to have to bear with me with this one being kneeling. I'd normally practice this one standing, but we can go into working with the sides. So if you want to make sure the feet are hip width apart, or like me, I've got the knees hip width apart, and we lean to one side, so you start to get that stretch through the sideways, come back up, lean, come back up. That's 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go do 5. You can carry on if you wish to. So find which ones really work for you. So the next two we're going to go into very, very similar. You can do these ones sitting or you can do these ones standing. You're really getting into the biceps. We're going to go into a bicep curl and an upright sort of row. I really, really like these ones. And once you get to set 2, 3 or 4, you should really feel that these start to feel challenging, especially if you're lifting at a fairly kind of decent weight. You don't have to go up very high. It can be really tempting to sort of work with like up to the 10 or the 15 kilos. Work your way up to that so you're warming your body up. Remember the practice we did last week with the belt where we were sweeping that over our head? Really warm the shoulders up. So with our bicep curl, you're lifting the weights up, you're lifting and you curl the hands around and then you lower back down. So the palms are facing into the hips, and as you lift and bend the elbows, you curl the hands up so the palms are facing into the shoulders. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Pause, have a few more goes. Let me know in the comments, are you doing 2, 3 or 4? Let me know what weights you're using. And then as you come back, we're going to do our upright rows. So these you need a bit more room. So again, I'm going to do these ones kneeling. You start with the hands here. So you've got the palms obviously holding on to the weights. Palms are facing into the hips. As you bend the elbows, you're lifting up and lower down. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Pause it. Do at least one more set. You should start to get to the point where you're like, really hearing that exhale. So we're going to go through one last one. It's probably my favourite ones to do. You can do these ones sitting. They're really nice to do sitting on the bench. And I will put this in here. As I've already said, I'm not a PT, I'm not a physio, I'm a yoga teacher. These are my practices. When we can come out of isolation and you can get a PT session, please do, because they can really get into your form. Obviously, there's only so much we can do through the screen. I can't see how you're doing. And it's amazing how off our arms are. Even when I went for a one-to-one fairly recently and doing that movement we were doing last week with the shoulders, she could really see how much out my right shoulder is compared to my left because I'm so dominant on my right side. So notice that you might be aware this is why it's good working with mirrors so you can see your form, but I highly recommend booking that one-to-one. If you join a gym, they usually do half an hour for free anyway. I know my gym does, so you can get that one-on-one. They can look at how your body moves. And even though I'm used to looking at bodies, but it's amazing how I don't always see it in my own body. So you might be aware when you're looking at other people, but when it comes to ourselves, it's good to get someone else so they can step back and see how you're moving and they can check your technique. So the last one, we can do sitting. I'm going to be doing this sitting on my mat, but this one's really good when you're sitting on a bench. So we're going to be holding our dumbbells. Elbows are in line with the shoulders, and you're pushing up, pushing hands towards each other, lowering back down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Well done. Pause this video, do a few more sets, or this video is going to be finishing anyway. That's our last one. If you enjoyed these, let me know, something a little bit different. It's nice to share with you what I like to do in my own practice. It's not just yoga, but these really help with building up the strength in my shoulders. I know I'm prone to catching and trapping nerves in my shoulders, and especially where we're in isolation. If we can't go out and have a massage, something I would normally treat myself to every 2 to 3 months, and that's not going to be happening for a while. So it's looking out for ourselves. How can we look after ourselves? Yoga is a good practice to do, but for a lot of us, it's going to be working with the flexibility. We need to bring that strength in, and there are strengthening practices we can do in our yoga practice when you're working with the weight bearing poses such as tabletop, plank variations, downward dog. but bringing in these elements of working with building up those wrist stretches, working with things like the popcorn hands, working with the belts, the resistance bands, and then working with something that you're gripping. So you're going from really working with spreading the fingertips nice and wide when you're weight bearing to gripping the hands, so you're working with the forearms, building that strength up in the body. Thank you very much. Let me know if you would like me to do any more. Otherwise, enjoy building on your weights. Like I said, it's really worth getting a one-to-one with a PT so they can check your form. So as soon as you're able to do that, I highly recommend getting in touch with a local PT and looking into this and taking your practice to another level where you're really looking after your body and you're finding that element of 50-50 with your strength and your flexibility. Thank you for joining me, and I shall see you on Thursday. Big Namaste.